Hi and welcome. This is Homebody Rundown and I'm HR. We have just finished week 4 of Pantry Challenge. This is the first year that I've done the challenge. Link in the description to the YouTube channel that inspired me to do this, the Three Rivers Homestead. The rules I set were just to buy produce, dairy, and protein like eggs, and no stocking up, which is a normal part of our grocery shopping. I did allow for ordering food or buying extra for when other people are over. We are a family of 5, but oldest child is back at college, so just 4 of us at home now. I'm a stay-at-home parent. That's how I have time to make a lot of our food. The kids homeschool, so we eat almost all of our meals at home. Extra kids here on the weekend, so using up a few more things from the freezer in the pantry. Fish sticks, applesauce, peaches, and corn. Tonight I am soaking some beans to cook tomorrow. These are black beans and garbanzo beans or chickpeas. I rinse them several times and look through them for rocks or dirt or anything that shouldn't be there, and add clean water and let them soak overnight. This morning I'm starting with the chickpeas. They absorbed a lot of water last night. I will get them rinsed and into the Instant Pot with clean water. Following the instructions for the Instant Pot, I always keep my manual handy, and while these are cooking, I got out a stick of butter to warm up a bit before I make cookies later. These may be overcooked for some purposes, but I will primarily use these to make hummus, so I prefer them softer. Now I will rinse the black beans and get them in the Instant Pot with clean water. I have the black beans cooling now by the open window. It's pretty chilly outside today. I removed some of the liquid to this measuring cup. I will probably need to add some back in later, so I do not get rid of it at this point. I also hope to make some black bean burgers later this week, so I pulled some of the drained beans out into a separate container. Now I'm going to flavor the beans with some lime juice. I forgot to mention I did add salt, onion powder, and garlic powder earlier to these beans. I do not make a smooth refried bean. I just smashed them enough to make them more cohesive. Using some of the refried beans right away to make quesadillas for lunch. These are just simple beans and cheese. The tortillas are defrosted from the freezer. Also making a burrito with sharp cheddar, guacamole, and hot sauce. I need to keep a close eye on these. I have been known to burn them. But while those are cooking, I'm prepping a little more for the cookies. Got out more ingredients, added sugar and shortening to the mixing bowl, and made up a small bowl with sugar and cinnamon to dip the cookies in. I think I forgot to say, today I am making snickerdoodles. These are looking good, so I can get the burrito in now. And I also made an extra quesadilla in case someone wants that for lunch tomorrow. There really aren't that many refried beans left now, but they are looking very thick, so I'm going to add a small amount of the liquid back in. They will set up or thicken up even more as they completely cool. I am going to put these refried beans into the freezer, so I'm using this Snapware container. It's freezer safe, and I like that the lid even has a little freezer symbol on it. Quesadillas and burrito are done. The chickpeas have been cooling in this 9 by 13 glass dish for quite a while, so I'm going to get them into jars. They will go into the freezer. I like to have smaller quantities because I will primarily use these for hummus, and I don't want to make too much at a time. I do add in the liquid as well. Now all I have to do is get these put away. We will have the refried beans for the freezer, black beans for the refrigerator to hopefully make black bean burgers, chickpeas for the freezer, and some chickpeas for the refrigerator because I need to make hummus for this week. I also saved the last of the black bean liquid in case I want to make some soup or something with it this week. Cookie time. Going to blend the sugar in with the fats for a minute, and then I'll add the eggs. Had to go find the cream of tartar in the pantry. I pretty much only use this when I make snickerdoodles, and thankfully I have enough. It is very low. Mixed in the rest of the ingredients. This is my typical setup for scooping out the dough. Most of the batches of cookies I make will fit on 3 of these air-baked cookie sheets. Recruited middle child to scoop the dough while I roll them into a smoother shape and dip them in the cinnamon sugar mix. I try to get them as evenly spaced as I can and all pressed to about the same height so they bake evenly. If you're wondering if all of this cooking makes a lot of dishes, it sure does. Cookies are finished baking and I pulled them off onto cooling racks. They smell amazing and they tasted fantastic. If I can find the recipe online, I will link it in the description. Mixing up more trail mix. The stuff I made last week is already gone. The only chips I can add are chocolate. I am now out of white chocolate chips and peanut butter chips, but that's fine. This mix will have peanuts, chocolate chips, cashews, and raisins. Also refilled this little cashews only jar for youngest child. Just a few more random pantry items I opened over the weekend, a couple crackers, and this tin of butter cookies. Going to put the Triscuits into a glass jar just so they look nicer on the counter. As I was filling this, I realized I should have put these in a larger glass jar, but I made it work. Making the hummus now with the beans I cooked in the Instant Pot. Here are the ingredients I'll use. It's looking pretty thick, so I'm going to add some water. That's looking much smoother. Gave it a taste, and it needed some more seasoning and some more lemon juice. I don't have a recipe for this, I just taste as I go. I probably could have blended this a little longer, but it's fine. This is a good amount for us for the week. I really felt like some fried rice, so going to make a very basic version using frozen peas and 2 kinds of onions that I need to use up. I had some chopped white onions in the refrigerator and also some green onions, but that's cool. My husband and I really like onions. Adding some ginger powder, soy sauce, and garlic powder. We'll let this cook for a few minutes. And I forgot to mention that I added avocado oil to the pan. Adding in the green onions and some cooked white rice from the refrigerator. I like to use this meat masher thing to break up the clumps of rice. Adding toasted sesame oil and giving that a stir. Made a space in the center and added a little more avocado oil. Also turned down the heat and added a few eggs. I'll let these cook in the center for a minute or two before I stir them in with everything else. Here's my bowl. I added a little more soy, some sambal oelek, and some roasted cashews. I'm not showing everything that we eat in a week, but thought I'd throw this in just so you get an idea of some of our fill-in meals. I'm making veggie burgers with onions and Swiss cheese and some green olives. These are my favorite green olives. I buy this jar at Costco. This may be a weird combination for some people, but we really like it. Also, here's a breakfast I made for the kids: fried eggs and toast. This afternoon I'm going to make a potato soup using some diced frozen potatoes and some roasted garlic that I had in the freezer. These are some of the spices I will use and some shredded cheddar cheese from the freezer. Instead of making a roux to thicken this, I am just going to add some of these instant mashed potatoes because I have so many to use up. I'm going to saute this onion in some olive oil and avocado oil. I won't be adding any butter to the soup today. Adding in some spices to cook for a few minutes with the onion, and shredding up a few baby carrots. I always prefer to do this rather than cut carrots up with a knife. Adding in the carrots and then some bouillon. This is Better Than Bouillon brand. Found a partial bag of spinach in the freezer, so I'm going to add that as well. I like to add either spinach or kale to a lot of my soups just for that little bit of iron and vitamins. Roasted garlic as well. This is probably too much garlic for most people, but I have a poor sense of taste, so I tend to make things a little strong. The potatoes are in, and I'm adding water and milk. Stirred this together and we'll let it simmer for a while. The kids won't eat the soup, so I'm going to roast some of these frozen potatoes. Be careful when you do this. It can put out a lot of steam when you open the oven door, so I always stand back. Going to add garlic powder, adobo seasoning, and salt. We'll use olive oil and some spray avocado oil to help the seasoning stick. We'll get this all mixed together and spread them out into a single layer. Checked on the soup, and I guess I did not have the heat turned up enough because it's done nothing. I was going to make homemade biscuits, but remembered I have 2 of these organic crescent rolls left in the refrigerator. They do not puff up or get as big as the Pillsbury ones, but they taste good. Needed a little more flavor on the soup, so I'm adding a garden vegetable bouillon cube. It is low sodium. Okay, it is simmering now, or boiling actually. Obviously it's super hot, so be careful when adding in more ingredients. Adding those instant mashed potatoes to thicken this up. It will not take much. Some cheddar cheese. And some nutritional yeast, which has a cheesy flavor. Finished product, we'll let it cool for a few minutes. and we'll get the potatoes in after I bake the crescent rolls. This soup was delicious and even better the next day. And the crescent rolls, they seem to be overbaked, at least from the color, and I did the minimum time. I think I want to get one of those oven thermometers. The potatoes were amazing, but either way with these crescent rolls, there was only one left, so they tasted fine. Today I'm making an apple pie. I have to preface this with, as usual, I don't follow a recipe and my pies don't usually look great, but my husband loves apple pie, and I found some apples on sale at the local store. They were Granny Smith, which is my favorite for pie. The apples were organic and only $3.99, which is a very good price around here. It's not enough apples though, so I'm adding in some of the Honeycrisp apples I got at Walmart. They do not seem to be lasting very long as far as holding up in the refrigerator, so I do want to use them soon. Using my favorite peeler. I call this a Y peeler, but I'm not sure if that's the real name for it. It's easy to hold and easy to do multiple passes when you're trying to cut through bad spots and take it down a couple more layers. These Granny Smith apples had a lot of brown spots on them. I was surprised. You really couldn't tell from looking at the outside. But the flavor was excellent. Recruited youngest child to help with peeling the rest, which was so helpful. I add a little lemon juice to the apples. Just finishing up the jar in the refrigerator, so I got the last jar from the pantry. Starting to slice the apples, and as I'm watching this video, I'm wondering if I could just cut these off the core and put them into the food processor with a slicing blade. I'm going to look for the manual and check what kinds of things you can put through the slicing blade. I've only used it for slicing cheese, I think. I do end up recruiting middle child to come and slice the majority of these. I do tend to make apple pies or apple cakes when the kids are around to help. But in the future, that food processor idea may be a real blessing. Had to move the apples from the measuring cup to the larger bowl. It was too full and I couldn't stir in that. I'm going to add in some lemon juice. As I'm stirring this, I am finding some surprises. This is the second apple core, and so there are also some seeds floating around in here. Adding in a little bit of nutmeg and quite a bit of cinnamon, and stirring that together. Adding in some white sugar. I am going to make a crumble top for this, so I am not adding a lot of sugar now because the topping will have about half a cup of brown sugar. Probably about 2 tablespoons of flour. For the topping, I'm adding, like I said, about half a cup of brown sugar to about half a cup of flour, and I put some cinnamon in this as well. Added in some cold diced butter. Sometimes I will work this butter in and combine it better with the flour and sugar, but I did not bother today. I did not roll this pie crust out any thinner. This is a store-bought crust. It's just the size it was, and I'm folding over the little edge that's sticking up. I'm going to add the apples. They will cook down significantly. I found another seed, so now I'm paranoid, and I end up taking some of the apples out just to do one last check for random apple seeds and cores. Adding on the topping, I did not end up using all of it, but I did make sure to put all of the butter pieces on. Putting some foil around the edges for part of the cooking time. And I'm glad I put a cookie sheet on the rack under the rack the pie was on, because it did boil over some. It doesn't look special, but it tasted amazing. I think these apples were a fantastic combination, and of course pie crust is always delicious. Middle child had a friend over, so just made easy from the freezer dinner using the last of these sweet potato fries, some vegetarian chicken patties, and some real chicken nuggets, and baking them all on the same cookie sheet. Also some corn from the freezer as well. The next morning I'm making pancakes. I maybe do this twice a month. A regular batch is enough for several days for my family, unless oldest child is home. I'm using this shelf-stable box of lactose-free milk. You do have to refrigerate it after you open it. I really like to have them on hand, but they do not last very long, so make sure to keep an eye on expiration dates. This is the last of the fresh flour that I have in the house. I do have a couple bags that I tried storing in Mylar. I've never opened them, so I'm not sure if it worked, but I may go ahead and check those out in the next week or so. Whisking everything up using the KitchenAid mixer. This is my setup. I add butter to the frying pans, but you could also just use a little spray oil to be healthier. And just a heads up, if you fry these in oil, you will smell like fried pancakes. And when the weather is nice, I have made these out on the grill just so the house doesn't smell like fried food all morning. Should have flipped this first one a little sooner, but the second one looks good. When they're done, I move them off onto a cooling rack. They've usually cooled off completely by the time the kids get up and get breakfast. I add a little butter for each pancake, so really you don't have to butter these when you go to eat them. And of course, be careful, this could splatter. I don't have the heat up very high when I make pancakes. And I don't know why, but the last couple times I've made these, they've been so flat. It's the same recipe I've always used. I'm starting to wonder if I put baking soda in the baking powder container, or maybe the baking powder just isn't working as well as it should, but I have a feeling it's more on me. I'm not sure, but I think I'll open a new baking powder before I make pancakes again. But there were no complaints and everybody ate them. I should probably try one. I'm personally not a pancake person. I like French toast. Picked up groceries yesterday at Sam's Club and Whole Foods Market. These are the Sam's Club items. 3 pounds of Dole bananas, $1.47. 3 pounds Sunset brand tomatoes, $4.78, produce of USA. These look really good, but that does not mean they'll taste good, especially in the winter around here. Cuties brand seedless California mandarins, 5 pounds, $7.42. My Sam's Club does not usually have organic produce, so I was happy to see these and thought we would give them a try. 5 pounds organic Fuji apples. I don't see a brand name. They were $6.56. This is a better price for an organic apple compared to Costco. Product of the USA. These also look like they're in really good shape. I was just craving sweet potatoes this last week, so picked up a bag. I usually get them at Sam's. They are always a good price. This 5-pound bag was $4.62, product of USA. Total for Sam's Club was $24.85. Here's the Whole Foods items. Since it was such a small amount, I did not do a pickup order. We just went in the store, and our store just got self-scans, which makes it a lot quicker. 365 string cheese, 12-pack for $5.49. These are vegetarian. 365 organic peeled garlic, 6 ounces for $3.99, product of USA. I have not bought these before, but I wanted to try some organic bell peppers. Whole Foods Market brand, $6.99 for 2 pounds, product of Mexico. These look to be in really good shape. $12 ounces of 365 brand organic coleslaw mix, $3.49. This is also in French, so I'm guessing they sell it up in Canada. Produce of the USA, good until the end of the month, and the only ingredients are cabbage and carrots. Also picked up this 365 feta cheese block. It is vegetarian, 1 pound for $7.99. I have not tried a wide variety of brands, primarily just the feta they have at Sam's and Costco, but this one I like so much better. It's in a brine, and maybe that's the big difference. It's very full of flavor. I need this for the black bean burgers that I want to make. 1 pint 365 organic heavy cream, $3.79. This does have milk and gellan gum added. If you want just heavy cream and know their ingredients, they do have an option or two, but they are more expensive. 5 ounces 365 organic baby arugula, $3.49, produce of the USA. I have not bought this before. It does look like there are blemishes on some of this, so I may need to pick through it. Hopefully it's not too bad, but I don't know. Okay, this was another cheat. Bread is not on my approved pantry list, but my husband really likes the sourdough, so I picked one up. It's fresh in the bakery, and it's only $6. Finally, 18-count Organic Valley free-range large brown eggs, $7.99. Total for Whole Foods was $52.71. For lunch today, I'm going to make some split pea soup. I have green and yellow dried peas, so I thought I would just use some of each today. I've not done this before. I rinse them before I put them in the pot and add some water. For seasoning, I'm going to use an Edward & Sons not chicken bouillon cube and some roasted garlic powder. Forgot to show it, but I also added some onion powder. Brought it to boil and we'll let this simmer. I do keep an eye on it. I always need to add more water as it cooks down. Going to slice some of this sourdough bread from Whole Foods to use for a grilled cheese sandwich. Since this bread is so chewy, I'm going to do some really thin slices for that. Going to make another 1.5 sandwiches using whole wheat bread, which the kids will prefer. It's 1.5 because there were only 3 slices of bread left in the bag. I use butter on both sides of the bread. Using some Horizon Organic American Singles. This is a cheese product and it melts really well. I buy this at Whole Foods. Speeding this up here, I am adding some goat cheese and arugula to the sourdough bread for my husband's sandwich. Finished this bag of whole wheat bread, but I do have another bag in the freezer. Making whipped cream. This will go well with the pie I made yesterday. I like to add this to coffee, and one of the kids likes to just eat whipped cream. I much prefer to make it in my KitchenAid mixer, but the whisk is still dirty from making pancakes this morning, so I'm going to use this little food processor. It works fine for a small amount. This is heavy cream, vanilla, and powdered sugar. I don't let it go very long without checking it. I don't want to make butter. I tasted it and it needed a little more sugar, but it didn't blend that extra sugar in very well, so I'm just going to stir it in by hand. I don't want to over whip it. I got a little distracted by that, and I think I should have checked these a couple minutes ago, but they're not burned, and that's a win because I would say grilled cheese is the thing I most frequently burn. Blended this pea soup with an immersion blender after the peas were soft and it had cooled down some. Please be careful blending hot stuff, but oh my goodness, the color of this soup is terrible. It's putrid looking. I will never mix these again. I mean, it tasted good, and my husband couldn't care less about the color, but I care about the color a little. Added a little shredded Parmesan to the weird soup. Putting some cooked black beans into the oven for about 20 minutes. I'm going to use these in a black bean burger recipe. This is after they finished and they've dried out a little bit and started to split open. These burgers are based on this recipe for really awesome black bean burgers by Kenji Lopez-alt. I am substituting in some chilies for a poblano, but they are spicy, so I will not use all of this little jar. I'm not going to show his recipe, but I will link it. It is available online, and I will link his YouTube channel. He makes great food videos. I also have his cookbook, The Food Lab, which I really like. I appreciate all the research that he puts into the recipes. I am not following this recipe exactly today. I have way too many black beans, I'm guessing, and we'll make some substitutions. But one time I think I followed almost everything exactly, and they turned out fantastic. I have made a lot of black bean burgers over the years, and these are by far the best. I do not need all of the chipotle peppers in adobo sauce, so I'm putting those in little jars for the freezer. Please be careful when cooking with spicy foods. If you are sensitive to that in any way, it can really hit your eyes, or you can breathe it in and make you cough. It can just be a bit much, so be aware. I'm also going to put the extra chilies in the freezer. This recipe uses roasted cashews and feta cheese, which I think are amazing additions. Of course, not if you have an allergy. Added the last few ingredients in the processor, mayonnaise, egg, and breadcrumbs, and started to process it. And then remembered I should stir these things in by hand, so it probably is a little mushier than ideal. Started scooping this out with my new 2-ounce scoop, and that was a bad idea. This is probably why I broke my last one. I think these scoops are only meant for smoother things. The scraper mechanism inside kept getting stuck, so I stopped using it and started using my broken one, which doesn't have that scraper attachment. Sorry, that thing probably has a real name. Anyway, I made it work. Pan fried these with some olive oil and avocado oil. I really like the little crunchiness on the outside. Made a sauce with some of the adobo sauce from the Chipotles, also non-fat Greek yogurt and some mayonnaise. Opened a guacamole and diced up some tomatoes to add to the burgers. This was a really excellent combination. Very delicious. Overall, Pantry Challenge went well. I definitely spent significantly less on groceries, and I did get a little more creative with meals and made some things I hadn't bothered with in a long time. However, by still buying all the fresh foods that we needed, honestly, it wasn't much of a struggle. I feel like we do have a well-stocked pantry. In fact, too well-stocked in some categories. So I'm going to continue with one more month of the challenge to get through more of those pantry items. I'm going to change the rules some though. I already cheated a few times getting bread and coffee, so I think it's more reasonable to set a weekly budget that can be used for any groceries that we need. So if you're interested, I should have 4 more videos out for Pantry Challenge over the next month. And as always, thank you for watching.